Me and eights. Those are the guys. But honestly, like, there are other guys that, like, if you drafted, Garrett Wilson or Chris Olave at the end of a 12, the end of a first round in a 12-team league, I'm not looking at you going like, what were you thinking with those guys? Like, you know what I mean? Like, they're, but for me, those are the 6 that I think I feel comfortable taking in the first round. But I mean, 6 is a lot and more than most years.
Kupp, I think, is the strangest one in a lot of ways because he was the number 1 wide receiver last year on a points per game basis, and he's coming off his last full healthy season in 2021, which was arguably the greatest wide receiver season of all time. He's 30, so he's getting a little bit older, but still should be young enough. And he's not super reliant on leaping ability or outrageous speed. But at the same time, there's just so many bad vibes around the Rams.
He was injured in the preseason as well.
Injured in the preseason, and also it's the type of thing where I don't think that team's going to be in playoff contention. So if he's got a little niggling ankle injury and they're in the mix for a top 5 pick, then maybe he just doesn't play the last few weeks, which could be the fantasy playoffs. So I don't know. I think if you can guarantee me 17 games of Cooper Kupp, then I think he might be the number 1 player in fantasy, just about, and certainly in that range. But I don't know. It's awkward hitting submit on the Kupp button.
I have him at wide receiver 3. To your point, I mean, this is somebody who last year, even in a limited time, right? He missed games. He scored more points than DJ Moore, Deontay Johnson, and Juju Smith-Schuster, who all played 16 or more games. His 8 full games last year, a 33% target share. He had over 25 fantasy points in 5 of those 8 games. And to your point, I mean, it's still going to be a passing offense under Sean McVay. Matthew Stafford didn't come back to hand the ball off, and he's all they got. So I mean, again, we talk about massive target share for guys like Devontae Adams, for Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like, Cooper Kupp is going to get, a 30% target share, if not more. And so I think the talent, because of the age thing, I have Jefferson and Chase, who I think are safer ahead of him. But yeah, I love Kupp this year, and I do think he's not getting talked about nearly enough. I like, Connor, the fact that Jay is expressing injury concern on Cooper Kupp, but was defending Michael Thomas for months and months and months and months.
Well done,
on
Jay.
the other side.
Pick
now.
your spot.
I'm a hater. Can guard Mike.
Unbelievable.
All right, let's look at Tier 2 because we briefly touched on Tier 2 here. Obviously, plenty of options in this tier that also could be round 1 picks, as Barry said. Ride or die, Amon-Ra St. Brown is there. But Devontae Adams, CeeDee Lamb, I mean, this is a beefy tier here, Jay, loaded with talent. Who would you say sits in this tier that you think comfortably could finish the season and you look at and go, man, that guy should have been a Tier 1 player?
I think people are sleeping a little bit on Devontae Adams, and I realize that he has the injury concern as well, but he finished last year as wide receiver 3. And it's not like he had an amazing quarterback situation. Derek Carr didn't have a great year. And I think just, again, on that team, it's not quite to the same extent as Cooper Kupp on the Rams, but, I mean, he's all they've got, really, in terms of elite passing option. Darren Waller no longer there either, and just with the sheer amount of targets and the talent and the touchdown equity, I wouldn't be surprised if Devontae Adams replicates last season.
It's interesting. When you were saying Devontae Adams, I thought where you were going to go was DeVonta Smith. And I think he's really interesting. A lot of these guys, we've talked about St. Brown, obviously, a ton. Garrett Wilson, Jalen Waddle, Chris Olave. We've talked about all those guys, A.J. Brown as well. But 2 guys at the end of this tier, T. Higgins and DeVonta Smith, we haven't talked about that much. And Smith, I think, is fascinating to me. Starting in he just had a bad week 1 last year for whatever reason. He didn't show up really in week 1. But starting in week 2 last year, from that point forward, he's the 12th best wide receiver in fantasy football. He had a 27% target share, on one of the run-heaviest teams in the NFL. And we expect, because the Eagles' schedule is much harder this year, we expect defenses to have, defense coordinators are all like, okay, how do we prepare for Jalen Hurts? They weren't really prepared that much last year. So my expectation is that the games are going to be more competitive for the Eagles this year, so they're going to have to throw more. I mean, they were running so much in the second half last year because they were just up. They were just killing teams. So I think Smith is really interesting. I have him at wide receiver 14, but you could easily see him sneak into the top 10, if not more so.
I mean, he finished last year as wide receiver 9, which I think goes a little bit under the radar because of the year that Hurts had. A.J. Brown had a better season as well, but I mean, he was a top 10 wide receiver on a team that basically never had to throw the ball in the second half. So yeah, he could have a massive season.
On a points per game basis, wide receiver 9?
No, just wide receiver 9 overall.
Oh, really?
PPR,
okay.
Yeah, that's what I've got.
Okay.
Yeah.
My scoring is slightly different, but whatever. Either way, he's very good. This much, but we agree that he's very good. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and RotoWorld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, respectfully, okay? Respectfully, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from RotoWorld, and betting analysis from NBC Sports Edge.